What's going on, guys? Welcome back. As you guys can tell from the intro, we're working on another engine. This one's a little different though. This one's a 6-liter Powerstroke. It's for a truck that I've had for about a year now. Just kept getting put on the back burner, but we're finally getting it done. We're gonna go through everything we have here. This is more in line with what we do on a daily basis. We work on a lot of 6.0 Powerstrokes. So it's gonna be exciting to show you guys kind of what we do. Some of the things we do to upgrade these trucks to make them last a lot longer. Obviously, the 6-liter is very known for their problems, but there's a lot of little things you can do that go an extra mile on fixing those problems. Obviously, you know, there's the standard head studding, EGR cooler, things like that. There's also a lot of other things that we've found, especially as these trucks have gotten older in age. They need more parts and they need certain upgrades. And this is basically a package on about 5 years of us working on these engines and refining the ins and outs of what fails on them and upgrading those parts, whether that be OEM, aftermarket, whatever. First off, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna show you guys the truck. All right, guys, here it is. It's a 2006 Ford F250 crew cab, long bed, lariat, 4-wheel drive, automatic. It's got all the features, leather interior, super clean paint. Even the bed's pretty clean. Only downside is you can see it's got some body damage where the previous owner probably dropped the trailer on it at some point in its lifetime, but you know, such is life with a truck. It's got some nice wheels and tires on it. We got one flat over there. We're gonna have to replace the tire. I ended up buying this truck off of a customer. It unfortunately it shot a rod out the original motor. Obviously they didn't want to put the money into it, so I ended up with it, and it's just kind of sat here for about a year until now I finally had time to start working on it. But as you guys can see, it actually has a pretty clean interior. I mean, this leather is in great shape. We're gonna do some treatments on it to get it up into even better shape, kind of revitalize the life. It is the lariat, so it's got the 1,000,000-button steering wheel, you know, the nicer interior, even has a sunroof. You can see we're gonna have to do some work, some detailing, maybe change out some seals, but outside of that, only real damage is like this little bit that these all kind of get. Actually even has this cup holder piece that 6.0 owners, you guys know what I'm talking about. The fact that this is still here is pretty awesome. But yeah, look at those back seats. I mean, this truck overall is in great shape. It just needs a little bit of love. New motor. As you guys can see, it's got a Mishimoto radiator already. We got a Sinister diesel coolant filtration system and some other things, but one thing I did notice when I came out here earlier is that we're missing our torque converter. Because this engine did chuck a rod out of the block, we could not get the torque converter studs out, so it went out with the block. And I think we had this truck before we moved into our new building, and I think it just kind of was one of those things that got lost in the move, or I might have accidentally sent it to Randy's as a like a core sale. So that kind of sucks. But I think what we'll have to do now is, since that trans has been open for a while, we're gonna go ahead and pull it out and go through it, refresh it, make sure it's cleaned up. We won't do anything major as far as the build goes. Obviously the bed needs work, whether we replace it or we can get it fixed. We'll see. It does have a gooseneck hitch. You can see we got all the little engine parts in here. But it does have a gooseneck hitch. It's got the rails for a fifth wheel if somebody wants to put one in. I'm actually pretty stoked on this truck because I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a little multi-part series, kind of taking it from how you guys see it now to basically what the finished product will be. Because like I said, we got an engine build, we have a trans refresh that I plan to do, and then obviously we have the freshening up as far as I want to buff out this paint a little bit. We're gonna get the wheels and tires all freshened up. The interior is going to come out phenomenal. I have some products that I've been itching to try, and I think this truck is going to be the perfect candidate for it. Kind of where the truck's at right now, you guys can see. It's got huge potential, but we just got to get it there. For now, it'll just sit out here until we get it back in the shop once that motor's put together, and we kind of go from there. All right, guys, so we're in the build room. We got the engine on the engine stand, and we got the table full of all the parts that are going to go into it. Now, to start off with, everybody knows the normal 6.0 failures is going to be the head gaskets, the oil cooler, the EGR cooler, and then, of course, you got your normal oil leaks and things like that. What we do here at Sin City Diesel and Off-Road is we take the 6.0 solutions to a whole nother level. All these parts, minus the engine rebuilding parts, of course, are what you would get if you came in here and got a level 4 solutions package from us. We replace every gasket in the engine while we're here. We even do some other upgrades as far as we do change out your bottom end bearings and your rod bearings and your rod bolts. We found that a lot of these cranks are getting up in age, especially now that we're hitting 250,000 miles on most of these engines. So we're having to send the cranks and the cams out for polishing. So we do certain things like that. But beyond that, one of the major things we're going to do is obviously new heads. These aren't new heads. These are heads I've had on the shelf for about 1.5 years from back when we used to rebuild heads. So since it's my truck, we're going to go ahead and use them. But if you bring in your truck to us to have it worked on, we're going to do new heads. But for the most part, these are similar. These got a full valve job, new injector cups, new freeze plugs, everything checked out as far as there's no cracks. But the main thing here is the O-ringing. This is a huge upgrade as far as keeping these head gaskets clamped, getting rid of that known issue of the head gaskets with these. Of course, we got the ARP head studs. There are other brands out there on the market, but because these heads aren't the easiest to just redo, you know, say you use a cheap head gasket or a cheap head stud and, you know, there's a failure, you got to pull the cab off and you got to go back and basically get the engine to this state, which isn't fun. Now, I know there's some of you out there that are super badass and can pull the head, you know, without opening the hood and things like that. But you know what? Here, we pull the cab to do heads on 6.0s. So it is what it is. But anyway, so we use a OEM upgraded oil cooler. I'm not a big fan of those air to liquid style coolers that you see on the market. The 2 trucks that I had with them, they were crap, and I replaced them with the OEM style cooler. So if you bring a truck with one of those air to oil coolers, we're gonna go ahead and put a OEM in here. We've had very minimal failures with these, and they are about 1/3 the price installed than the other style, and I will back this with warranty, so it doesn't matter to you anyway. Moving on, we have a new OEM front cover, like the last one in the country that I could have bought. Everything's getting hard to buy, everything's getting hard to find. I'm looking even aftermarket, can't find, so luckily I got a new front cover because the front cover on this engine was trashed, and anytime I do a new motor, I'd like to do a new front cover anyway, because if you guys don't know, this is where your oil pump is. Basically, these 2 gears right here. And one of the common failures you'll have is you'll get stuff coming through here, whether it's like a failing lifter or just something that you got in your oil, you know, whatever. And this surface here will get gouging in it. I've ran them before, even with the gouging, and usually not an issue, but obviously if you're going this far and doing a new motor, that's something we want to address. This front cover kit is really awesome. It comes with a full kit for you get the harmonic balancer bolts, you get the low pressure oil relief valve, everything in here to make it basically bolt right in. You even get the new oil pump front cover that goes here with the front main seal and gasket, everything like that. So well put together kit. It just kind of sucks that you really can't get your hands on it. And if you're in Vegas, I'm sorry, I got dibs on every single one coming out of our local Ford dealership. I already told my guy, but you know, moving on, we're gonna go ahead and replace the stock push rods with the upgraded OEM push rods. Combine that with the brand new lifters. Reason we changed these out is Ford did come out quite a while ago with the updated push rods that are 7/1000ths of an inch shorter than the factory ones they put in back in like 06. Reason being, I guess they did some research and found that the lifter preload that they were putting on these lifters from the factory was too much, and that was causing some of the lifter failures that you do see in the 6.0 Powerstrokes. Not as common, but you do see them. The more common thing is having a head gasket or an EGR or an oil cooler failure, but this is one of the known issues, and this is what we do to address it. We put new lifters in every single time. We put the updated push rods in. Outside of that, as you guys can see, we have a full gasket kit, all OEM. The only gaskets we don't do OEM are the Mahle valve cover gaskets, and reason being is the Ford set would be about 3 times the cost, and we've had 0 failures from the Mahle set, so good to go. Mahle does make a full engine top and bottom gasket set. The only reason we don't use it is because it doesn't include this little tube here, this connecting tube, which connects your EGR cooler to your oil cooler, and because of that, I don't use that kit. If they included that, it would save me money, and I would switch over to that. Moving on, we got like I said, a bottom end Ford gasket kit. We got OEM standard size main bearings. I got to order up some rod bearings, but they'll be OEM or Mahle. Either one's great. What we do too in our level 4 kit is we replace the cam and crank sensors because 1, they're just cheap insurance, and 2, we've seen some stupid failures from them. Remember guys, these trucks are getting older, so even though these aren't common failures, at I think 40 bucks a piece retail, it's a good peace of mind, especially the camshaft, the crankshaft one, I'm sorry, is right here on the bed plate behind your AC compressor. So it's kind of a bear to get to. I got to charge you a few hours to replace it, so better off while we're here we replace it. Another sensor we replace is the oil pressure sending unit. Reason being is, again, it's another cheap sensor, and I started having some failures a couple years ago where for some reason after we worked on these trucks, these sensors would take a dump, and of course you'd end up with your oil pressure coming straight out and making a mess and putting you on the side of the road. So cheap insurance, we now just include that every time we do a even an oil cooler job. We're going to put a new oil pressure sensor in. Moving on to the actual engine build, we have a set of Mahle cast pistons, just basic replacement pistons. Now these are 40 over. I try to stick with a 20 over at most, but this engine, when I pulled it apart, it was out of another truck that I had, and the wrist pin snap ring was gone, and I actually found it in the oil pickup, and the wrist pin had rode and put gouges into this number 1 cylinder. So unfortunately had to punch it out, but you know, it is what it is. Sorry, number 2 cylinder, but getting mixed up here looking at the camera. But anyway, yeah, so had to punch it out to 40 over. For a stock block, I mean, this is a stock size motor or stock power motor. We're not going big power. It'll be just fine. Of course, our boys over at Enoch Motorsports took care of the machine work. We got all the cylinders bored, honed, the deck surface taken care of. We even got we got new cam bearings, and you don't see, we don't have the bed plate on right now, but we got the main journals all honed out, line honed out. They're all within spec. The crank, of course, we got it all polished up. Everything checked out. The rods, they're just standard 6.0, the OEM rods. We got the new wrist pin bushings in here. That's something I don't like overlooking. We make sure we replace that on pretty much every engine build that we do. I went ahead and did ARP rod bolts. Not that I think it needs it, I just went ahead and did it. So, and of course, we got some of the rods had to be a little honed out to make up for the difference. Like I told you guys before, when you do the extra clamping force of the ARPs, sometimes you kind of change a circle a little bit, so they have to open it back up. Not all the time, but this time it had to be on some. Other than that, we're just going to be, like I said, we're going to use OEM or Mahle standard bearings throughout. We got Mahle rings for the pistons, and everything else pretty much stock. All right, guys, so I'm going to wrap the video up here. I did notice I'm missing a couple little parts like the main bolts, but not a huge deal. Anything I missed, I'll make sure to cover as we get the motor together. But for the most part, you guys see what it takes to make a 6-liter reliable. It gets a bad rap, but overall, in my opinion, I think it's an awesome platform. I think they sound good, they make good power, and once you do a lot of these repairs, they are reliable. Of course, like any motor, any engine, any truck, they're gonna have their problems. You know, the 6-liter just has their own. But with what we're doing here, this should make for an awesome, reliable truck. Super stoked to be getting this project done and out of my hair. Like I said, I've had it for about a year now, so to be getting it done will just make me so happy. I'm also very excited that I'll be bringing you guys along for it. Like I said, this is going to be a multi-part series, not just doing the motor build, but we're going to have to do some trains work, and we're going to have to do some cleaning up, make it look presentable, because we're basically taking it from the dusty platform or the dusty truck it is now to a respectable rig that anybody would be proud to own. So if you guys haven't already, subscribe if you want to stay up to date on this project or any of the other projects we got going on. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, then anything you want to see on this project or any of the other ones, leave a comment down below. And if you guys haven't already, please like the video. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.